Not scared. Good day, you're watching Businessworld Live. I'm Danie, Laurel.
And I'm Delos Santos. Here are today's top stories. President Bongbong Marcos secures more than 800 billion pesos worth of investment pledges from his trips in Indonesia and Singapore. And in pitching the country to foreign investors, the president describes the Philippines as Asia's fastest rising star.
Now back home, the Philippine peso drops to another all-time low. The local currency trades beyond the 57 level against the greenback.
President Bongbong Marcos verbally approves the recommendation for the optional use of face masks outdoors.
And here comes the iPhone 14 with the new series. You can send emergency text messages when you're out of cellular and Wi-Fi coverage. We begin our broadcast with President Bongbong Marcos bringing home over 804 billion pesos worth of investment pledges from his trips in Indonesia and Singapore.
In inviting more investors to come to the country, the president also called the Philippines as Asia's fastest rising star. Camille Samonte with the report.
My inaugural state visits to our two important ASEAN neighbors were fruitful and engaging.
That was how President Bongbong Marcos described his inaugural back-to-back state visits to Indonesia and Singapore. In his arrival speech, the president touted that he secured 804.78 billion pesos worth of investment pledges from his trip. He said this will support the country's economic recovery efforts and create more jobs for Filipinos. The investment pledges cover the following sectors: renewable energy, data centers, e-commerce, broadband technology, startups, government housing, and agriculture.
Ito po ang isa sa mga ipinangako ko nung nakaraang SONA at na isusulong natin ang foreign investment upang lumakas ang ating ekonomiya.
But the president admitted that the investment pledges are just the first step. He vowed that his cabinet will make sure that these commitments will ultimately benefit the public.
Gagawin natin lahat na itong mga sinimulaan dito sa una kong state visit ay maging makabuluhan at may itatapos natin hanggang maramdaman na ng pangkaraniwan na taong bayan ang investment na yan at mararamdaman kung gaano karami ang dinalang trabaho, gaano karami ang dinala na bagong kita na ibibigay para sa ating mga kababayan.
Before leaving Singapore, the president invited Singaporean investors to invest in the Philippines. In his speech, he said the domestic economy is on a steady path toward economic recovery.
Today, we shine a spotlight on Asia's fastest rising star, the Philippines. In the next few years, our economy is expected to outperform our regional peers. My administration is committed to establishing an even more competitive business climate conducive to high-value investments.
5 bilateral agreements were sealed during the state visit. These are the Memorandum of Understanding for Digital Cooperation and Data Protection, Agreement on Regional Counterterrorism Cooperation, and MOU on the development of New Clark City and water resource management. A joint communique on the recruitment of Filipino health workers were also signed. For News 5, Camille Samonte, We Are One News.
And yet another record low for the fourth consecutive trading day. The peso dropped to an all-time low against the dollar. Data from the Bankers Association of the Philippines show the local unit lost 13.5 centavos on Wednesday, that's September 7th, to close at 57.135 versus the dollar. That is weaker than the 57 recorded on Tuesday, September 6th. Now, ING's Nikki Mapa says the peso is weakening alongside the rest of the Asian foreign exchange space on the broad dollar strength. He said the US Fed and European central banks would inevitably deliver aggressive rate hikes as they try to cool red-hot inflation.
Now, only a formal order from President Bongbong Marcos is needed to officially make optional the wearing of face masks outdoors. The palace said the Interagency Task Force Against COVID-19 has recommended the voluntary use of face masks, but the health department clarifies that this is only allowed in open and non-crowded outdoor areas with proper ventilation. DOH officer in charge and Undersecretary Maria Rosario Barrejeres says President Marcos has already given verbal approval on the proposal and they are now just awaiting a formal order.
The President has given his verbal approval when the Secretary of the ILG called him. We want to emphasize the confidence of our officials sa ating bakuna, kung saan itong mga bakuna ay nakapagbigay sa atin ng patuloy na stable at manageable ang ating mga kaso ng COVID-19.
The Private Hospitals Association of the Philippines says they were not consulted over the voluntary face mask proposal, but the group's president, Jose de Grano, tells One News The Big Story that he's sure the government has already asked for the opinions of some private doctors or experts. He adds that lifting the mask mandate could be done as long as COVID-19 figures remain favorable.
Of course, if the figures are right, then we can try it, because in other countries right now, here in Bangkok and in Singapore, they have done that already. And you know that even with that, the people still wears the mask.
For infectious disease expert Edsel Salvania, policies on the optional wearing of face masks should be clear and easy to interpret. He says spaces that are crowded, like markets, schools, and public transport, should still implement a mask-wearing rule.
I feel bad for the LGUs every time there's a policy that is, so nebulous, and so that's why yung pag-craft ng policies have to be crystal clear talaga, as much as possible black and white. But of course, there is leeway rin naman in interpreting that because iba-iba rin naman yung situations ng LGUs.
Now, our guest for today is all for the easing of the mask mandate outdoors. Let's find out why. We have on the show Joey Concepcion, Go Negosyo founder. Joey, good day. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Jess and Danie.
Okay, so first, why back this recommendation from the IATF? How confident are you that Filipinos can now manage and police their own COVID risks?
Well, a couple of weeks ago, we came out with our, Father Nick and I came out with a press release, saying that I think we should move forward. Filipinos are learning to live really with COVID. We can see that very clearly. Booster uptake, unfortunately, is not where we want it to be. I think it's something that we still have to continue to push. But then again, we have to respect the freedom of our people, to freedom of choice. No matter what we try to do, if they feel that Omicron is mild and they're willing to take that risk. But so I think we have to have a change of mindset. Let's realize that this pandemic is really moving already to what we think will be similar to the flu, maybe a little bit more challenging than a flu, but people have learned to live with COVID-19, no? And I think we have to accept that fact. Wearing of mask outdoor, to me, is really, optional, no? Wearing of mask indoor is definitely a must, and that is something that we should still continue, no? But let us trust that many of our people who go outdoor should enjoy the fresh air, no? And make the decision for themselves. And you can see that in areas that are still crowded outdoor, people will continue to wear face masks, especially the seniors, no? But let us give them the choice, no? That's, to me, very important. As other countries have removed mask mandate outdoors, I think the Philippines should continue. If we really want to bring up the level of tourism and tourists to come to this country, definitely they should be allowed to remove the mask outdoor.
Okay, sir. So that brings me to my next question. Apart from hassles, that this would ease. Is there a direct link to increased businesses, especially for MSMEs? Better economic figures perhaps by just not mask wearing? Or is there something that we can expect that once this mandate is done, that there will be better business opportunities?
I don't think there will be any difference whether you wear a mask or use a mask in terms of economic activity. Definitely, the opening of schools will generate more economic activity. But what we are doing with giving the optional wearing of mask is allowing people to practice their freedom. No, if they feel that they are at lesser risk and the place is not crowded, then why not allow them to remove the mask? But remember, the other thing is, how do you implement mandatory outdoor use of masks? No, are we going to fine them? Are we going to ticket them? Are we going to, what is the penalty for that? No, so it's very hard to implement. No, something like that. It's almost impossible. Are we going to jail them? So if you can't really implement something on a mandate level, it's going to be different. Unlike indoor, if they don't wear the mask, they can't enter. But how do you prevent people from entering an outdoor space? No? It's impossible. So if you can't implement it, why will you do it? I said all just for show. That's why I was telling. I mean, we have my friends in the advisory council of experts, our doctors. Everybody is definitely for outdoor wearing of masks, but I've explained to them it's so hard to implement. No, And if it's hard to implement and police, then you will never be able to, implement it that well. So let's trust the judgment of our people. I think through these years they've learned to live with COVID. So I understand the doctors and I take their advice in most of the cases, but. And especially for indoors, definitely that is something that we should keep.
Now, Joey, do we have enough mitigation strategies here in place to allow for an optional mask mandate? I mean, you yourself mentioned earlier that booster take-up remains a challenge. So what then should be the direction here, the policy that government should be working towards in order to at least offset the possibility of an increase once, of course, we let go of that mask mandate, especially outdoors?
Well, together with our advisory council of experts, we've really been pushing really hard in promoting boosters. No, I mean, we have launched campaigns on Isa Pa and all of that, and we have conducted a lot of these town hall sessions and asked our experts to really explain why the importance of boosters. But it's still very challenging. And the way I look at it is that if we can't impose, restrictions on mobility in entering restaurants, etc., and that is detrimental to the economy, we should just continue to promote it. But my point is that at a certain point in time, it's really the decision of these people to be responsible enough. If they have not been infected, so they will be definitely having a waning immunity if they don't take their succeeding boosters. We just have to continue to push, and that I fully support.
Sir, as sitting on the Private Sector Advisory Council of the President now, what is your advice on the next steps for vaccination? Are we still going to be spending budget for boosters that you mentioned are not being taken up? Are you going to be pushing for the private sector to make this mandatory in some cases? What's the game plan now for vaccines?
And more to that also, you have the health department saying the time will come that vaccines will no longer be free.
Definitely. First of all, when talking to our experts in the advisory council, which has been advising us in the private sector, of course, booster is something that we've been discussing. And I've explained to them that the bivalent vaccines may be coming in towards the end of the year or early next year, and what their position is for this. And I guess very clearly, especially for the elderly, those 60 years and above, that is something that should be considered. And hopefully by then, the government will be able to purchase maybe not will be maybe purchase the right quantity now, but the private sector's participation here, I think we are open to the idea of also supporting our employees, those who are qualified to take these new booster shots, the bivalent booster shots. No? But we're still waiting for advice from the pharmaceutical companies as to whether they will file for certificate of product registration, which means that these vaccines can be sold in the drugstores or in the hospitals. No?
Okay.
So that changes the game. No? In other words, we can now buy directly from the drugstores, no, or the hospital. So it all depends. And I think the intention of the Marcos administration is they may extend the state of public health emergency till the end of the year, which may be good because then it will allow more time for these companies to apply for CPRs. Now, right now, the vaccines are under emergency use authority, and the government has to guarantee that in case something happens to the people taking the vaccines, the government is responsible. But to me, that the pharmaceutical companies should be responsible for that. But for that to happen, pharmaceutical companies will have to apply for CPRs. No?
What about the purchase of or acquisition of antiviral treatments here? When should that at least be part of the focus now, moving from vaccine this time to treatment?
Definitely, that is very important. In fact, that is something that is in our arsenal. In other words, if you get sick, what can you go? You either take molnupiravir or Paxlovid, or there are other medicines for that. But what's common right now is molnupiravir and Paxlovid. We have a lot of stock of molnupiravir out there. They're cheaper at 1,200 to 1,500. In fact, Lloyd's Lab is already producing it locally, so at a better price. But Paxlovid, we have definitely no stock in the country. Last I checked, and Zwellig is the distributor of Paxlovid, and I think there is a lot of demand for this antiviral medicine. So hopefully, they will be able to get enough stock by the end of this month or early next month. So we should never run out of Paxlovid because I see it as very effective, especially for the elderly. Of course, with the advice of the doctors. No?
All right, so moving forward now with our coping with the COVID and living with COVID, beginning with walking outside with no mask. Maybe that's tomorrow. Thank you so much, Joey Concepcion, founder of Go Negosyo.
Thank you.
Now let's pause for a quick break, but coming right up after that. Unemployment eases in July, even as more Filipinos were underemployed during the month.
More of that and other stories on Business World Live returns. Stay with us.
And you're still watching Business World Live here on One News. I'm Jess Delos Santos.
And I'm Danie, Laurel. Now, prices of canned sardines may go up as a group warns of a possible shortage by the end of 2022.
Local fishermen, however, believe that commercial vessels are simply fishing for more access to municipal waters. Shaila Francisco with the report.
Tons of tamban or sardine fish were sighted near the shores of Barangay Tambaliza, Concepcion in Iloilo Monday afternoon. Residents rushed to catch some for themselves and for added income. Hershey, the uploader of the video, says this just goes to show that there is enough supply of sardine fish in the country.
Masaya din po yung mga yung mga kasimanwa ko dahil binigyan kami ni Lord ng blessings at saka naman ay mahirap yung buhay. Kaya naman nakakatulong yung tamban sa amin sa pagbili ng bigas, mga allowances namin sa sa eskwelahan at saka mga school supplies.
But the Canned Sardines Association of the Philippines still warns of a possible shortage in canned sardines from December to February. This is despite data from the Fisheries and Aquatic Resources Bureau that supply will exceed demand by the end of the year. The group says commercial fishing vessels are having a hard time catching fish due to the limited fishing area.
So, kulang ang fish supply ngayon. So, kung magkukulang ng fish supply ngayon, hindi maka-build up ng inventory, walang masyadong tamban doon kasi nagmamigrate siya sa loob ng municipal water kasi ang hypothesis ko dyan, yung plankton kasi ngayon nasa municipal water. Ang plankton kasi, ito yung pagkain ng isda.
The group says this could push prices of canned sardines up. Some small retailers have already hiked canned sardine prices by up to 4 pesos. However, the BFAR clarified that commercial vessels are still allowed in certain areas of municipal waters.
Sinasabi ng batas na pwede naman buksan ang 10.1 to 15 kilometers sa commercial fishing vessels, subalit kailangang pumayag ang local government units subject to conditionalities, dapat makapagpalabas din ng ordinansa.
Local fishermen are also questioning the supposed shortage. The group Pamalakaya says commercial fishers are just using the issue to gain more access to municipal waters. But CSAP says they serve a different market from small-time fishermen. For now, the group is seeking a dialogue with stakeholders and government agencies to address the problem. Shaila Francisco, ER1 News.
The number of jobless Filipinos in the country eased in July according to preliminary data from the PSA. The July labor force survey shows that the country's unemployment rate is at 5.2%, translating to 2.6 million jobless Filipinos. That's lower than the 2.99 million or 6% unemployment rate recorded in June and the 7.2% posted July last year. However, the underemployment rate picked up in July to 13.8% of the labor force or 6.54 million Filipinos. That's higher than the 5.89 million or 12.6% recorded the month before, but much lower than the 21% in July last year. The National Privacy Commission and telcos have expressed support for the passage of the SIM card registration bill. This comes amid widespread complaints of leveled-up text scams and spam. According to the NPC, mandatory SIM card registration can help curb the spread of these messages.
Yung SIM card registration po, makakatulong naman siya, di ba, sa pagbawas ng mga gantong incidents. Kasi hopefully maging deterrent yan sa mga paggamit ng mga SIM cards.
Telcos have also backed the proposed mandatory SIM card registration. However, they admit that this is not a silver bullet solution to the problem of text scams.
We have always been supportive sa SIM registration. It might be effective today, but as we all know, the scammers are also getting better. We have to prepare, and we should anticipate.
For now, the NPC has advised users to block phone numbers sending spam. However, telcos say blocking scammers' phone numbers can only do so much. Smart Communications has recommended a meeting to address the issue.
Kailangan talaga magkaroon ng joint investigation effort to finally identify the perpetrators. Kasi block tayo ng block, pero bili naman sila ng bili ng SIM cards. Although, nagiging expensive na sa kanila ngayon to operate, no, itong scam na to. Kasi isang send lang nila, ma-identify na natin, binablock na natin yung SIM card.
The Philippines is eyeing two loans from the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank and the Asian Development Bank worth a combined $800 million. The country eyes to bag the loans next year to fund its post-pandemic business and employment recovery program. The AIIB and the ADB will co-finance the program, with each multilateral lender providing a $400 million loan to the Philippines. The proposed post-COVID-19 business and employment recovery program is based on the National Employment Recovery Strategy, which incorporates business, skill development, and employment-related reforms.
Apple has officially unveiled the latest line of iPhones. This year, Apple is launching 4 new models: the base iPhone 14, the iPhone 14 Plus, the iPhone 14 Pro, and the Pro Max. Prices of the latest models are generally the same as last year's iPhone 13 series. But with Apple dropping the iPhone mini in its latest release, the basic iPhone 14 will now stand as the cheapest model at $799, with each subsequent model in the lineup charging $100 more. And with satellite connectivity, users can send emergency text messages when they're out of cellular and Wi-Fi coverage.
Emergencies don't always happen when it's convenient. When you need help, you need it wherever you are, even if you don't have Wi-Fi or cell service. Now, your iPhone can connect you with the help you need when you're off the grid.
No better way to make you feel like your phone is outdated.
I
mean,
just
your iPhone
bought
13 is luma na.
It's gonna take a while though until we get hold of the iPhone 14.
All right.
So I'll enjoy mine first.
Enjoy that, of course. And those are the biggest stories on the economic and corporate front today. I'm Jess Delos Santos.
And I'm Danie, Laurel. We are One News, all sides, all the time. But don't go away. We'll give you the latest on the local bourse and Businessworld live returns. Stay with us.
And you're still watching Businessworld live here in One News. Governor Medalla saying we still have more ammunition. How is that message resounding with currency watchers?
Well, Jess, unfortunately, we're weakening even further this morning. You can see us at 57.145 to the greenback. How far is this going to be weakening? You know, but as you mentioned, he did signal his readiness for as many as 3 more quarter point increases already. Now, last month, what he said was he was bracing for 2 more quarter point increases. So a bit more hawkish, but he did mention they will not match the Fed 1-for-1. He also did mention inflation will be peaking this month and then head closer to 3% from mid-2023. So let's see whether that does happen. Now let's take a look at our open here, Jess. We did open in the red earlier on, and then we bounced back a touch. So we're now up, closing in back to 6,600 levels after having slid by, to 6,500 levels here. Now this again the lowest in a month yesterday, headed by a plunge in oil because of high inflation as well, but as well as the peso weakening 12% year to date on the back of that. Now, let's take a look at the peso related and also interest rate related sectors here, properties, of course, and how is that jumping? It's up by 0.4% on the pronouncements at perhaps, higher interest rates, but that might also be feeding in as well to the demand of properties. Let's take a look at the financials here. I'll just pull out the one-day chart for you so you can see it's also up by 0.7%, led by BDO and PNB. So again, properties and banks actually jumping on the back of, nevertheless, a still weaker peso and the pronouncement that we might have more rate hikes than previously announced.
Okay, let's see how that hawkishness is going, at least so far as to curb at least all that weakness in the currency. And that's it for today, September 8, 2022. Join us again tomorrow at exactly 9:30 a.m. You can also catch us on Signal Play. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News Live anytime, anywhere. I'm Jesse Delos Santos.
And I'm Danie, Laurel. Mask on, wash hands, stay safe, Philippines. We are One News, all sides, all the time.